Hey parents, Mike here at Chaotic Purpose, and just sitting in my truck. I wanted to shoot a quick video on a story that I wanted to share that has really shaped me personally as an adult, and then also some of the things that I do as a dad with our 3 little kids. And this story really broke my heart when I heard it, and I still remember the intersection I was at driving home on my way from work that day. And so similar to 9/11, right, you're probably in the same boat where you remember exactly where you were on that terrible day. And so this particular event had a really similar impact where I remember exactly where I was on my way home that day. So I was just flipping through the radio, listening to some music, and I came across a local radio station, and the 2 DJs were talking about bullying in schools, and it caught my attention. And this lady had dialed in. She was talking about how she was picked on in the 1st grade by this little boy, and he was just relentless. He told her over and over again how worthless she was. And this lady, she ends up telling the DJs that she's now 42 years old, and she said this 1st grader ruined her life, quote, ruined her life, all right? It really broke my heart that day for a couple of reasons, and the first one is, bullying in schools is one of those topics that really angers me and works up some emotion in me, right? How cruel kids can be to each other. So that's one of them. But the other thing is that this lady allowed a 1st grader to ruin her life. And I think with a couple tools that I want to share with you today, I think her life could have had a different outcome. And I hope that at some point she has found a better way to cope with whatever this 1st grader said to her. But I learned a couple years ago, I was at a conference. It was a business conference, but it really ended up being more of a personal development type event. And there was a guy on stage named Miles Monroe, and some of you maybe have heard of him, maybe you haven't, but he was an author, speaker, and he spoke on leadership primarily. But he was talking this day. He's unfortunately no longer with us. He was in a plane crash a few years ago that took his life. But he made a comment that day that said, thoughts aren't really as important as the source of the thought. And it took a while for this to land, but this has been really valuable to me in my adult life. So we have a lot of thoughts come our way from the people around us, maybe the workplace, maybe a spouse, significant other, from our kids, that kind of thing. And what I learned to do on that day at this event is really evaluate the source of the thought. And then what I've learned to do since then, I'm not perfect at it, but I've learned to make a decision based on if I'm going to believe that thought, if it came from a credible source or not. So let me explain. So this lady in the 1st grade, she had a thought coming at her that she's worthless, okay? Now that's a negative thought, but what she didn't understand how to do was to evaluate the source of that thought. And in my opinion, and I think you'll agree with me, a 1st grader has basically zero credibility in telling you as a person who you are, what you're worth, why you're here, that kind of thing, right? They're a 1st grader. On the other hand, there's another thought from this lady's creator, from God, who says, I created you in my image, you're priceless, right? You can't put a value on your worth because I made you. Not all of you agree with me on that God created us, and that's fine. This will still be helpful as you go through this. But so two thoughts on the table. One says you're worthless, one says you're priceless, okay? One source has zero credibility, and the other source, God, our creator, has 100% credibility, all right? And what this lady didn't know how to do is evaluate the source of these 2 thoughts and then make a decision on which one she chooses to believe, okay? Here's how this is translated over into being a dad with our 3 little kids. So my wife and I have 3 kids. Our oldest just turned 6 2 days ago. So the current ages are 6, 4, and 2. And so our son, our oldest, his name is Camden. He came to me about 6 or 8 months ago. And he came up to me and he said, Dad, Kenzie, our 4-year-old daughter, he said, Kenzie just called me stupid. All right. And so even our kids in our house are getting hit with negative thoughts, right? Just like when you and I grow up, just like, how your kids now are growing up, not everything that comes into our life are positive. And so what I'm trying to do, because of this lady's story, is to teach our kids how do we handle negative thoughts when they come in, and how do we, what are we going to do with them? And so ever since our son was about 3, I've been telling him that he gets to control what he believes, okay? And this was a perfect scenario. This has happened on a couple occasions now, but he comes up to me and says, "Dad, Kenzie called me stupid." So 2 parts to my parenting here, and I'm not saying this is right or that this is perfect, anything like that, but here's what I did. The first part is I've got to have a conversation with Camden. So I looked him in the eye and I said, "So Kenzie just called you stupid. Did you believe her?" And he said, "No." And I said, "Are you stupid?" And he said, "No." And I said, "What are you?" He said, "I'm smart." I said, "That's right." And then I reminded him, because I've been telling him since he was about 3 years old, I was like, "Listen, buddy, you can't control what other people say and do, for that matter. You can absolutely control what you choose to believe." And I said, "So Kenzie just made a comment towards you. Are you going to believe what she said or not?" And he said, "Nope, I'm not going to believe it." And I said, "Good. You can go back to playing now." Now, the second part of that is I got to pull Kenzie aside and tell her that that is not going to happen in our household, right? And that she's not going to use that word towards her brother or anybody else, for that matter, okay? So anyway, that's how I handled it. Again, not not trying to say what I did was right, but in light of this lady's story, she was 42 years old, and a first grader, quote, ruined her life. And I really believe if she would have understood, or maybe just had a few more tools, it's not that it would have been fun or pleasant to have this kid in her life, but I think the outcome of her life could have been changed for the better in some way, right? And so I'm trying to ingrain that into our kids, right? You cannot control what they say. You can absolutely control what you choose to believe, okay? Now back to the bullying topic. I don't think bullies are ever going to go away. That's how some people are, right? People, adults and kids who don't like themselves are going to lash out and do mean things to other people around them. But if we can understand, and even as adults, right? Now I'm just talking to you and I'm reminding myself again, because I have used this in my adult life, right? I don't think we're ever immune from negative comments and things coming our way. And what I'm learning how to do, I'm not perfect at it, but say, okay, here's a negative thought that just came my way. Here's what the thought is. Here's who or what the source is. Am I going to choose to believe it? Yes or no? All right. And this is a really tangible, useful tool, to be honest. I've used this multiple times. And so anyway, I just wanted to share that today. This is one of those stories. This poor lady, like I mentioned earlier, I hope she found some help in a better way to deal with this. But I think as parents, with the young people in our lives, not only can we go to work on this, but I think we can help just with a few conversations, maybe set them up with some tools. And it's not that it's going to be perfect, right? It always hurts, or to some extent, when something negative is said. But if we can equip our little people with a few tools on how to handle this, maybe they can sort through some of the stuff and kind of file it away better than, just speaking from my experience, than I was able to when I was growing up. So anyway, hope that helps. Here's the thing: I would love your comments, feedback. If you've got something to add to the story, or if you've got something that you do with your kids, right? How do you talk to the little people in your life and tell them, or how do you coach them through these situations when negative comments come their way? So anyway, appreciate you checking in. Thanks for being a part of what we're doing here at Chaotic Purpose. Again, we're all about parents, helping parents raise little people. So anyway, thanks for checking in. Make it a great day, and we'll check back soon. See ya.